All right, so here we're doing a rodent startup for a raised garage. It's got lattice breakaway walls all the way around it. This feature is the acting entry point for the rodents. They're just chewing through this screen in various locations and coming right into the raised garage. From there, migrating up into the subfloor through gaps here around the columns. The ultimate solution is to exclude at this barrier. Sealing drywall is very often ineffective because they can simply chew a new hole pretty much wherever they prefer. So what we're going to go ahead and do is determine what kind of a measurement we're going to need to install mesh over this entire frame. The width of the roll is going to be 48 inches. So to reduce material waste, what we're going to do is go the width of the roll high will be 48, and then the width of the lattice here is going to be 54 and a quarter, and we're going to go edge to edge for consistency, and that will essentially be two pieces with a center seam. So we'll come 48 up, we'll cut our second piece that distance, and we'll have a center seam essentially to seal in, but that will reduce material waste and make it the most efficient exclusion. So now that we've got that measurement, we're out here at the area we chose for a cutting location. Driveways, natural light, open space tends to be the preference. So we know our width is 48. So we're really only getting one measurement here out of this cut, and that's 54 and a quarter. So we're going to run that down, find that in the mesh, and go ahead and make that cut. Staying inside of the lines between a single square will always bring your cut within an 1/8 inch of your measurement, which is within reason for rodent exclusion or within tolerance. So we'll go ahead and just run that all the way across. All right. So now that we've got that cut, we're going to transition back to our lattice for the install. All right, so we're back at our raised garage lattice or breakaway wall. When installing this, these frames are often not square. So what we do to get consistent tight exclusion is start in the corner opposite of any utility lines. A nice featureless corner at the bottom of the lattice. It's important to start at the bottom. What we're going to do is make that flush with the ground and flush against our concrete pillar here and begin anchoring up this side. So we'll go ahead and yes, so we're using 3/4 inch sharp point wood to metal tech screws or aluminum corrosive resistant screws. Keeping your mesh flush against that block wall there is important. And then as we're screwing in, we are going up and tight so that the screw pulls the tension from the last anchor point out of the mesh. Roughly 8 to 10 inches apart. You want to keep them mostly in line. It's for visual cosmetics. Yep. We're going to do that right on just about up to where our seam is going to be. Generally speaking, I'll stop about 8 or so inches from that top seam. And then we're going to pick back up on this on the bottom. We'll pull that nice and tight. Just using my boot here to drag out tension or drag out any slack. And then we'll repeat the same process. Yep. Angling towards the unsecured portion to continue to pull that as tight as possible. and keeping it flush with the floor surface. We're not going to carry this all the way down to the next corner. We're going to get it close. And the reason for that is we'll run one more anchor point, is we have to make an expansion cut around this pipe. So we'll go ahead and get it right about here. All right. Now that we've got this lined up pretty well, we see where our pipe angles in, right in that center location. We're going to cut that just about like that. And just kind of make a little bit of a incision here. Let's see it. The camera here for you. Okay. So essentially what I've done is estimated that depth, made expansion cuts so that when we slide this back around it, we're going to have to cut that a little deeper. Just to get it to open up a little bit more. It's better to have to cut a little bit more than have overcut it. Now that we've got it kind of compressed, we'll pull that slack out, bring it tight from the floor, and then begin to complete the bottom, securing the bottom, continuing to angle those screws back towards that unsecured seam. And then when we start to come up, we're going to angle right back up into the left here to continue pulling that as tight as possible. And that just takes all the slack out of that kind of dead space between anchor points. All right. Now that we've got our first piece, we'll go ahead and screw in the back sides of our expansion cut here, just so these tabs aren't loosely creating any voids rodents can squeeze through. That's nice and tight. That entire seam around this pipe now is completely rodent proof. Making your cuts only as much as necessary in these locations reduces the need for additional products like silicones to seal around those seams. All right, so we're up here installing our second half to this lattice. Same thing we did on the bottom, just starting on the top now. We're going to get our mesh mostly in place here. Come up to that top corner, get it flush with the cement board and flush with the drywall here on the ceiling. Anchor it, and then begin to anchor down that same side. Yep, angling down this time to go ahead and pull all that tension or slack out of the mesh between anchor points. As long as you're keeping your mesh straight with your concrete blocks here, angling down is all that's necessary. And we'll just run that right on down. And then right into our seam, making sure our seam is overlapped, nice and tight. We'll come right in the center of it here. Uh-oh, see how that made a warp here? That's not good. So what we'll do is we'll back off this. We'll run this up and then re-anchor below it right back into the same hole. And now it's nice and flush on both sides. All right, so we've got our top half installed. It's tight, as tight as we can get it. Now there's the issue of the center seam. Obviously, there's nothing securing these two pieces together. So what we can do, and there's two ways to do this, but the first is to take your hand from the top. Obviously, the top is overlapping the bottom. Take your hand from the top, pulling all of that slack out of this whole top section, pulling it all out, and then run your screw down and into the top of this louver down the center seam. One screw there, tighten that up. So much so, it's questionable whether or not any rodents would go through it. But just to be sure we don't end up back out here because we didn't use one or two extra screws, right about at that halfway point, we're going to go ahead and install 2 more screws on each side of that center screw. That'll help pull everything tight and just ensure no rodents can come through that center seam. Yes, so running down onto the corner, straight into the corner versus flat on the or below the corner or above the corner, straight into the corner keeps it from splitting that piece of wood. If you don't have the option, using a self tapper versus a sharp point can also do the same thing. In this case, though, just running it straight onto the corner is the best way to go. If we don't have this option and we can't go with screws, the next thing to do is to take small black zip ties and do anchor points every 6 to 8 inches, just like we do screw points, and cut your tabs. In this case, screws are taking care of it just fine, but both are an option. Here we have a completed raised garage lattice from the interior. We've trimmed around all of these utility lines, nice and tight. There's nothing larger than about a 1/4 inch gap all the way around. It's anchored. It's trimmed neatly and consistently. It's tight. There's no warps. That's what you want dealing with these situations, because if you install it over these things, you don't make your cuts tight. You're going to have to use a lot of adhesives like silicone to fill in the gaps. Leaving warps whenever going over utility lines leaves little access points. That clearly doesn't exist here, and that's the way we want it to consistently be performed. It eliminates the likelihood of any kind of reintrusion over time through this barrier.